All right. Hello. Just got back home from work and I have some time to film because I recorded this yesterday and it wasn't that good. I wasn't really coherent and I've just been tired, you know. It was a busy weekend with coaching, coached 2 of my own lifters. Was there for both days of the competition. It was a good weekend. Training this past week. It was generally positive, you know. I'm just thinking backwards. So on Friday, the snatch volume increased and it became waves. That one, like the waves, I think really benefit me a lot. I think I need the snatch volume because my clean and jerk is much stronger than my snatch. And I want my snatch to become really strong because snatch is my favorite and split jerk is my second favorite, right? So from a purely aesthetic standpoint, in my opinion, they're the best. They're also the most satisfying to do. Because of the increased snatch volume, the cleans did kind of suffer a bit, but I think I need to bring a bit more snacks to my heavier sessions. I have one coming up on Friday. It's gonna be heavy, looking forward to it. That Friday session was the first session that I was like genuinely a little bit nervous heading into it, and that could have played a part. I'm not really too sure if it did because I was like, oh, okay, I have waves. It only just set in that States is about, 3 weeks away at this point. So addressing those nerves now, I signed up, I think, on Thursday, if I remember right. So it's really happening. And it's a bit nerve-wracking. It's mostly pretty exciting. And just want to give it my best because the fatigue is starting to kick in at this point and I'm just waiting until that taper week happens. We just have to manage my health, my body, and my mind. Make sure I'm doing the best possible decisions for those because you just need to keep my concentration high when I need to, when it comes to training, making sure that I'm doing my job at work, making sure I'm being the best coach possible, and not being a dead shit at the house, pretty much. Wednesday session, strength session with 3 front squat singles at 180. It's the fastest I've moved 180 front squats ever. So that's huge for me. My best front squat is 190. So when you see the videos, I'm pretty confident that 190 isn't my max anymore. I'm pretty confident that I can hit maybe 200 or something like that by the end of the year. Maybe even earlier, but we'll see. Tuesday sprints were pretty good, pretty happy with those. It's Monday today, so last Monday's sessions, generally pretty good. You know, Monday and Tuesday, they kind of meld together. Still squatting heavy-ish, like around 180. Still building the snatch balances. Yeah, not really anything too crazy from those 2 days.
Just generally,
Yeah,
be like, you know. Oh yeah.
nice.
So Jaden. Yeah, yeah. Quality money on Instagram, and he made, I think I have it saved, he made the smartest post about life.
I wanted to talk about comparison in sport, just in general, you know, because when you're competitive, when you're naturally a competitive person, like you want to win, you want to like and it always like ranges like what kind of competitive person you are. Some people just like to win and they only feel good when they win. That's why there's like, you know, it can come to the point where it is pretty much a mental illness where it's like, you know, you only enjoy, I'm just using games as an example, you only enjoy playing games when you're winning. And usually people will win by like hacking, cheating, that kind of stuff. And that's where it's like, that's like genuine, it's probably mental illness at that point where you're playing a multiplayer game and you're cheating basically. And no one else can touch you because you only feel the good feelings from the game only when you're winning. And I think everyone who says they are competitive does like have a little bit of that in them, but it's not to the point where it's like as pronounced as someone who is like hacking, say Counter-Strike or any other competitive game. It's not as pronounced as that because that's a whole new level. There are people who just love competition as a whole. They like, you know, going toe to toe with another person and like they just like competing against another person because it's enjoyable. I know that when I was younger, I would veer towards like, you know, winning is fun part of the spectrum. And I'm kind of like now I'm veering towards like the competing part is fun. Win or lose, whatever, as long as I give my best effort. You know, competing is really fun. Like I'll still play competitive games, but I'm like not that attached to winning or losing anymore. It's just like, as long as I tried properly, and if I know where I'm like mentally taxed, it's time to back off for a bit. Like I've dabbled in like various competitive things. I used to play Tekken competitively. I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh competitively. A whole bunch of stuff. I briefly played Halo competitively. It's really tough. And you kind of just like, you find what you enjoy out of those. And as a competitive person, there'll always be someone that's better than you in the sense of competition. And that always like leads to a comparison of, you know, I'm not that good because this person is better than me, that kind of shit, right? I think everyone knows that comparison is the thief of joy. And I'd rather focus on, you know, enjoying what I'm doing. Like in weightlifting, I just try to enjoy the lifts as much as I can. The numbers will come as a byproduct of just effort over time. That's what I'm trying to really focus on now. When it comes stuff like states or nationals, there's always like a good clump of lifters all together. And it's like, it's really enjoyable to compete against people around your skill level, you know, because you're not always gonna, you know, come out on top. You're not always gonna get the outcome you want, but knowing that you're going against other people who are in a similar mindset to you and it's attainable, whatever the goal is really cool to me. That is like the best part about, you know, doing sport and competing. Winning is cool, but you know, in a solo sport, only one person wins. I think people should always strive to win, but not achieving that doesn't mean that it was like a waste of an attempt. And basically what I'm trying to say, you shouldn't feel like losing means you shouldn't have tried. That's not what I'm getting at. I mean, like, the effort is what matters. Winning is just a bonus. I recently heard this quote from John Cena, of all people. I tuned into like a podcast that he had, and I wrote down the quote verbatim. He said, if you want to stop feeling worse about yourself compared to others, stop building yourself up in that way. In other words, feeling good about yourself because you're better than another person, that will plant the seed of feeling terrible when you realize you're not as good as another person. Because like I'll see these posts on Instagram talk about comparison and why you shouldn't do it when we're not really addressing the person themselves, you know, because it should, like, while yes, it is good intentioned, I feel like a person should understand why they're comparing themselves in the first place and like what comparing yourself to another person does to you. That sets you up to plant the seed of feeling bad whenever you fail at, you know, beating another person in a sport. Then why compare yourself in the first place? There are objective measures when it comes to, you know, the sport and all that, but like I said, I still believe that winning and high results, all of that should not be the focus. It should be like trying to enjoy what you can out of the venture you're doing and consistent effort over time. That's what matters to me as a person. I've grown to, you know, value that much more than, you know, medals and awards and At the end of the day, people will value certain things. You know, I don't really care about the highest high achievements that you can get. They're cool, don't get me wrong, but I feel like when you achieve a certain level, you kind of lose a bit of relatability as well. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I have to finish off some work. I'm probably going to edit this after training tonight, just because, yeah, I do not want to be like on a strict time schedule thing, because that's the last thing I want out of, you know, making a weekly thing, you know, putting myself under a time pressure like that. Like it has to be uploaded every Sunday. No, I'm just like, okay, at least 7 days, something like that. But yeah.